If you're new here, you may not know that about a year ago, we went through a pretty serious health crisis with my daughter. And I believe that some of that can be traced back to a very toxic environment she was in at her school. Now, we pulled her out of that school because they did refuse to remediate that mold and kept her home for about 6 months. So while she was here, we were very careful about making sure our home environment was clean. And it was at that time that I learned about mold and the mold business and how much money people are spending in this arena. Now, we are going to talk about that today on the show. I have Mike from Jaspr. We're going to talk about air quality and his experience behind the scenes in the mold business, how people are really getting ripped off a lot of the time, some free and easy things you can do at home to improve your air quality, and so much more. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation if you are someone who wants to improve the air quality for you and your family at home. And if you are interested in learning more about Jaspr for the next week, you can go to jaspr.co/Sarah K and get 20% off the Jaspr product. That's again just for the next week. And then after that week, you'll get 10% off using the code Sarah K at jaspr.co. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Again, we have some really good free solutions as well that I think could really make a big difference if you're looking to improve your air quality. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk with Mike all about air quality, why you should care, what you can do to protect yourself. So, Mike, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Um, so my background was in wildfire restoration, floods, fires, mold, hurricanes. So I was essentially a disaster chaser. So whenever there was a natural catastrophe like Hurricane Harvey or a huge fire in California or an ice storm or like something very catastrophic, me and my team would mobilize there to help clean and restore and rebuild homes that were really impacted. And I also, through that, we also did a lot of air quality testing and a lot of air quality consulting. So people were like sick at home and didn't know why. We would come in and figure out what was lurking behind the walls or in the air, in the carpets. When they just couldn't figure out what was making them sick, we would go and do a deep dive on their house. And when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So
Yeah.
I was very frustrated. There was two sayings that a lot of people don't know about, but in the mold industry, there's two sayings. One is the mold rush, and the other one is mold is gold. And it was very, very frustrating because if you go and have a mold restoration quote, you can get quotes between 2,000 and 60,000. And
Oh, yeah.
literally, sometimes the $2,000 job is the better one. The $60,000 guy is just better at selling fear and better at presenting it and packaging it often. So it was very frustrating because I was a hammer, so everything looked like a nail.
Mm-hmm.
And that nail was ripping people's entire homes apart. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it is appropriate to do mold restoration, but it's gotten out of hand. And a lot of
Yeah.
times people are doing blood and urine and air testing, and there's more mold out. I've seen a lot of people, especially friends and family, and now a lot of people come to me where they're being suggested to move out of their house for 6 months and rip up their brand new house when there's more mold that day outside than inside. Because of the
Wow.
mold rush, people are rushing into the mold industry. And they're saying a lot of things they don't know a lot about. And then, of course, a lot of health and wellness professionals. And I believe the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I do not think this is a big conspiracy here, but when you're taking your 2-day mold certification course, how much can you possibly know? So, long story short, and I can dive into specifics, but my background being in toxic cleanup, where we would use these massive, large air scrubbers. So basically, one air scrubber is like 30 air purifiers. And
Wow.
the good thing is these are the most effective things ever. This is how we would clean up everything from a crime scene to a flood to a fire. The bad part is they were hideous and they were loud. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a practical device. And then I got to see firsthand that most consumer air purifiers that you see at like Best Buy, Walmart, Home Depot, they're like kettles trying to heat bathtubs. You cannot heat a bathtub with a kettle because the water will cool down faster than you can heat it up. So when I saw, I'm like, oh my God, you either have these very industrious, effective, loud, ugly machines or these cute little plastic things that don't work. I was like, the world really needs something that is industrial, commercial in performance, but beautiful in design and looks good in your home and something you'd be proud to have in your house. So that kind of started my journey, and I was feeling very powerless from the restoration side or the air quality consulting side because I wasn't in the position. I didn't have a platform to make a change. So I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. Let me go and try to make industrial commercial grade equipment, but beautiful. So it took me 3 or 4 years to get there. And I realized I wanted to be on the solution side and on the proactive side, not on the reactive side. I like helping
Mhm.
people before they're sick, optimizing their
Mhm.
sleep. So the vision was to create an air purifier specifically for wildfire smoke. I would have never thought in a million years I'd be talking to you about health and wellness and sleep and allergies and improving things. But that's kind of the 2 3 minute recap on where I started and how we got here. And now I'm just on a mission to raise air awareness, raise air consciousness, and get people to pay attention to their air as much as they do their food and their water.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like I've had this conversation so many times with my community is like you have to control the variables that you can control. And that would be your water and the air that you breathe and the food that you eat, also your intentions, your spirit as well. There's a spiritual element to chronic illness and our health in general. But I think good air quality is absolutely crucial. So much to unpack with what you just said. One thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is like the air quality and the mold outside. That's not necessarily the big issue, mold outside. It's more so when it's inside the home, correct?
Yes. So
Yeah.
when we would go into a home to do mold sampling to test for
Mhm.
airborne mold, and there's many types of mold tests. Some
Mhm.
are skewed to be false negative, and some are skewed for false positive. Some are alarmist, like the ERMI test. It's not that it's not a good tool; it's a very good tool, but often people don't know how to use the tool correctly. So
Mhm.
it can provide very alarming results, which get people to either do nothing because they're shell shocked by what needs to be done, or actually do that, which is overkill. And then there's other tests that may be false negatives. So generally, when we're testing air quality in a home for mold, we test. Let's say we're testing a 3,000 square foot house with 4 bedrooms. We're going to take like 4 or 5 samples in the home in various
Mhm.
areas. And then we're also going to take a sample outside. And that sample is called the control sample. So, what we're really
Mhm.
looking for that day is how do the indoor mold levels compare to the outdoor mold levels? So I've seen people who gut their whole homes when there was more outdoor mold that day than inside. There was no mold problem at all. If they came back 2 days later, they would have had no mold in the house.
Mhm.
So mold outside is not a problem. Many things outside are not a problem because we have the beautiful sun and
UV,
its UV
right?
rays.
Mhm.
We have wind, which creates natural hydroxyl radicals. So wind plus sun is the ultimate air purifier. And trees, of course. So the
Mhm.
world's best air purifier is nature.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we left that shit outside. We created these like Tupperware boxes called homes, and we left nature outside. So when you
Mhm.
take mold and you put it indoors, first of all, you're now breathing it in an unnatural environment that doesn't have wind, doesn't have fresh air, doesn't have UV. And also the mold is pissed because you've trapped it inside and it wants to get
Mhm.
back outside. So it feels threatened. So what does it do? It creates
Gross.
mycotoxins, it proliferates, it grows, and it has mold spores. It doesn't want to be there. It'd rather be outside, just like your pets, just like your animals, and just like you. Um, so yeah, air mold outside is not a huge issue. It's when we are indoors and it can find space with it that it's a big issue, and it's your home is
Mhm.
not breathing, and it's more similar to pollen than people think. So mold is an
Mhm.
allergen. Everybody, unless you're like literally, there's some molds like Stachybotrys. Like if you have huge patches of black mold on your wall and you're sleeping beside it, everyone's going to be unwell. But a lot
Yeah.
of people don't have that. They have moderate levels of Badiospores, Aspergillus, Penicillium, the more naturally occurring outdoor molds. Um, when we test a lot of people's homes for pollen, there's more pollen often in your carpet, in your pillowcase, in your sheets, in your couch than there is outside because it
Mhm.
comes inside and then it can't get outside. And so yeah, mold is a same like dust. Dust is an indoor problem. You don't see dust on the sidewalk or on the grass. Dust is a symptom of poor air quality in an indoor space. So yes, your theory or your position on indoor versus outdoor mold is very accurate.
Yeah, when we went through a whole thing last year with my daughter, we had done some testing. She was having a ton of health problems, and it came back on one of her tests that we did, a functional lab test, which we're about to rerun because I think I mean, she's doing so much better. I'd be shocked if we still have the same thing on paper, but it said she had high levels of mold. And I'm 99.9% sure it was coming from her school, which we pulled her out of and never sent her back because they were unwilling to remediate and there were other issues. But we went through the whole testing of our home deal. And this is a pretty like, the house, the owners before us took really good care of it. So I was like, we're not going to find anything significant. But one thing they made us do before they came in and did all the different testing was we had to turn off the fan from our HVAC, turn off all of our air purifiers. Like we had to close all the windows. No doors could be open at least 4 hours before the technician came. They were just like, all of this has to be done or it's going to really skew the results that we get with this testing. And I was like, interesting. I wonder how many people are testing their homes for mold. They're leaving doors open. They've got the HVAC blowing. They've got all these other things of interference that could be skewing the results. And then they think they have this huge issue. And it's like, I think it comes down to the way you test as well. Am I right in that, or am I just kind of like off base there?
I have a question and then I have an answer.
Yeah,
My question is, when your daughter did testing, did the rest of you do testing too, or just her?
just her. We didn't. I mean, not none of us were really having any symptoms.
So
Actually, we
get
did on my
this.
son.
And
We
what
did
did he
have a
have?
stool test on my son. Nothing.
No
Zero.
mold?
No.
Stool. Okay. Usually, most of the mold tests,
And
mycotoxin
urine
tests
too.
specifically, are urine.
Urine. Yeah, we did
So,
urine.
okay. So almost everybody has high levels of mold or moderate levels of mold. Almost everybody.
Interesting.
But that doesn't necessarily, like, outside has mold. Like, if you test your
Mm-hmm.
body for heavy metals or allergens or whatever, there's some amount of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of the issue now sometimes is people test and they're like, I have mold in me. It's like everybody has some mold in them. Um,
Right.
it's like, are you drinking water and are you outside and moving? Because like everything has mold. Mold is very
Right.
naturally occurrent. It's omnipresent. So what often
Mm-hmm.
happens is, yeah, people do the ERMI test. They do a little dust test. They do a little urine test, and then they totally freak out. And it doesn't mean doing like a detox protocol is a bad thing, but like, it's not black and white. Everybody has this stuff. So
Right. I
I,
see so many people just like waste, not, I don't want to call it wasting, but they just spend exorbitant amounts of money on all this lab testing. They get this diagnosis of SIRS, not saying it's not an issue for people, but they get these really scary diagnoses. And I think the owning of the diagnosis and like all the other stuff that goes with it actually makes them even more sick and have a harder time, getting better, honestly.
I
And
think
quote
so
unquote,
too,
yeah,
because
detox.
like let's just say, a naturopath who
Mm-hmm,
they're running their business, they're treating
mm-hmm.
patients all the time. So they're already max capacity, super busy. But then they're all, mold's getting popular over the last 5 years, let's
Very,
say. So they're
very.
trying to then also, and now they're getting a lot of patients who are like, what about mold? So what is the
I have
naturopath
mold.
supposed
They
to
come
do?
to you with that. Yeah. Yeah.
And what do? They take a webinar or a 1 or 2 day course on mold. They read a little book. What more can they do? Not everybody can be an expert in every single thing. So what
Right.
happens is, money often infiltrates education because it's a great way to do marketing is to educate. So then they're saying, hey, you need to get your patients to do an ERMI dust test and a mycotoxin urine test. And then
Mm-hmm,
if they're positive for mold, give them this very intense detoxing protocol.
mm-hmm,
Okay, well, I don't. This is where I say the road to hell is paved with good intentions because,
mm-hmm.
or the naturopath says, go get your house tested for mold, and then the mold testing
You're
guy
always
comes
going to
out.
find something. Like, that's what I said to my husband. I'm like, he's going to find something. Like, even though this house is friggin' pristine, I'm sure if you go looking for something and you're paying, They're going to
I
find
have a
something.
saying for all my friends. Say, if you ever want to break a lease, give me a call. I'll come over. I'll find the mold.
Yeah.
And I've never not found the mold. In
Oh,
your
yeah.
house, where you can always almost find the mold. Number
Hmm.
one is going to be toilet bowl
I
reservoirs,
say bathrooms. Yeah.
under sinks, um, behind and like under the vanities, behind baseboards. There could be like little teeny drippy links, also in attics, because a
Mm,
lot of the time, and the reason you get attic mold is, so many homes are just built very quickly, um, that bathroom fans vent into the attic, and then the attic doesn't
mm,
adequately vent outside. So what happens is you take a shower, you crank that fan, and you're just dumping humidity into a hot concealed box up top. So then the attic gets a bunch of mold, which is probably the best place to have mold, because the way the stack effect works, the attic is more venting out than coming down and in, but it can backdraft. So
hmm.
I can always find some amount of mold.
Right.
But like, you have a house, what do you expect? Um,
You live there.
and yeah, like, open your windows, get some Jaspers, filter your air. But once again, what species of mold? How much? Like, it's difficult, and the reason that I don't really do much like Facebook ads or TikTok videos and stuff, because some things you just cannot explain in 30 or 45 seconds. At least I haven't figured out how. I haven't figured out how.
Right.
Sometimes you need to have a conversation. And
Hmm.
to answer your question though, where you were talking about,
Mold
you were,
testing.
yeah, take me back. You were asking about,
Basically, they were basically like you have to close all your windows, don't even open any
yes,
doors, turn like there all these protocols we had to follow
yes,
four
yes, yes.
hours before he was going to come in and do the air quality testing.
So this is very interesting. Um, well, when you are trained on mold testing, I can't remember, but between 48 and 72 hours is the standard, depending who you ask.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
when I say the standard, I mean, I didn't explain that very well. I had coffee for the first time in a week today.
Huh.
So I'm bouncing. Um, I asked my barista, he can make me a custom amount of caffeine. So normally he can do 20% caffeine, 80% decaf, but it was busy and he misunderstood me. So I thought it was a 20/80 coffee, but it was 100/0. I'm like, oh
Whoops.
no, but whatever, more energy for the listeners. So we were supposed to wait 2 or 3 days after it rained to do mold testing.
Hmm.
However, how could you practically run a business this way when,
No.
so you have to cancel jobs and put, like, you can't, it would never work. Like,
And you
unless
can't
you were
really get
charged.
people to close off all their windows and not open any doors and like
So
not
no,
use
that
their
that
AC for
that wasn't the 2 3 day. The 2 3 days
that's
is
not
after
okay.
rain. The
It's
the
just
few
rain.
hours was for the HVAC in the windows. But then the other
Got it.
interesting thing is, like, the HVAC thing, I could there is a point to turning it all off. However,
Hmm.
you could also have HVAC you could have mold in your HVAC system,
Right.
which would be a
Which
big
they
problem,
did find a little bit of that. And that was the
and it
only
would
thing
be
that they found in our house.
it would be harder to diagnose it. So one could also argue that I want to test your house in the state that you're living in it in.
Hmm.
So this may be a contrarian opinion, because one would say we would want to, isolate everything. It depends on the practitioner specific testing. Are they doing tape lifts? Are they doing air? Are they doing invasive testing behind the wall? It really depends on the specific type of testing. But
Hmm.
sometimes I actually like to test. I agree with windows closed, but HVAC on means if there's mold anywhere, we're going to be able to test it anywhere, but it would make it
Hmm.
harder to isolate it into the particular room. So that one's a little bit difficult. But yeah, just even communicating that to the homeowner, and then them following the instructions is a little bit difficult. But ultimately, it's like, I joke with people who are also doing mold testing, because after testing thousands of homes or even a couple hundred homes, as soon as I walk into a home, within 5 minutes, I know if they have mold or not, just by
How so?
smelling it.
Oh yeah,
By
that's why
smell.
I couldn't send my daughter back to that school because I was like, it's definitely got mold. You can smell it. Yeah.
I've never tested a home where I suspected it had mold in the first 5 minutes and then it didn't,
Right.
because so like I have a friend named Ryan Blazer from Test My Home. He's like the best at home testing.
Hmm.
He's a super high end. But he spends like 10 hours at the house, sometimes like a day and a
Wow.
half even. But I'm like,
Wow.
the funny thing is, even him, he's like, within 15 minutes, I already know. I know about the EMF, the mold, the radon, the everything. It's just crossing the T's and dotting my I's and giving the customer a detailed report. So,
Hmm.
which is really cool because I know if there's mold. I can detect CO2 levels as well. I can walk into a home and know if the carbon dioxide is elevated immediately. And
Hmm.
at first, you'd be like, how? And then the best way I could explain it is, let's say we take 5 people and we all go outside and we say, write down on a piece of paper what temperature it is outside right now. More often than not, everybody guesses within 5 degrees of each other.
Mm.
And it's like, but how? Well, you have temperature sensors in your skin. And the reason that those are calibrated is because you look at the weather, you have a thermostat in your house, you check the temperature outside, and then you feel it on the skin. So you can associate the temperature of air on your skin. Same thing. If somebody owns a hot tub or a pool, you know what 80 degrees water feels like, you know what 90 feels like, you know what 104 feels like. You've calibrated your temperature sensors. So that is the
Hmm.
most frequent sensor that humans have calibrated. The second most is if you've grown up drinking tap water like all of us did,
Oh
and then
yeah.
in the last 10 plus, somewhere in the last 2 to 20 years, you've discovered filtered water. You're like, wait a second, that hose water when I was a kid did taste kind of plasticky.
Yeah.
But
Like
no, nobody.
chlorine here.
So now, once you cross the chasm and you start drinking filtered water, if you go to a restaurant, you get tap water, you're like, blah. Your taste buds have now calibrated to chlorine. So now
Hmm.
you can easily detect chlorinated water or other chemicals in your water just by taste. But before
Hmm.
you didn't have that awareness. Now that you have that awareness, the desert feels dry, the rainforest feels humid. You may not, and I guarantee you, because I've done it, if you looked at relative humidity every day, which I do, I can tell you pretty much indoor and outdoor relative humidity just by how the air feels on my throat and on my skin very easily, the same way that you can with temperature. So now that I literally take a CO2 detector everywhere I go. So sometimes I'm out and about with friends, and I was at a kava place in Austin like 2 3 weeks ago, and my buddy's like, my friend Mike here, he was telling the girl who owns the kava plate, he knows the carbon dioxide. And I'm like, oh, thanks for putting me on the spot, man. He's like, what's the CO2 name? And I'm like, 950. And then I pull out my CO2 detector and it was like 960 or 975.
Wow.
Because like I know it's easy now
Hmm.
because I calibrated to the sensor.
Hmm.
Um, when I was on Wellness Mama's pod, she told me a story about someone who they put a vibration thing on them, like a little bracelet that would vibrate different frequencies based on if they were facing north, east, southwest. And then after two
Ah,
weeks, they took it off and they know which direction they're facing just naturally. They calibrated their
interesting.
true north. It's like, how do the birds know? Like, we assume that the birds have something magical that we don't, but like, we kind of have a lot of those
No.
superpowers too.
I know the north, south, east, and west because I go out for sunrise and face east every day. And then I'm out at sunset and I face west. And so naturally now I'm like, I can figure out
You're calibrated.
direction so much easier now. But most people have no idea how to do that because they never even think to go outside at those times or know the importance of doing that. So it's, yeah, we're very out of touch with our environment.
And this is probably my favorite thing to talk about. As much as I love talking about our Jaspr air purifiers, and we can do that after. The real thing here is once you learned the taste of water, you could then trust your taste buds. For example,
Yes.
if we're all so impressed by sharks and bears for smelling blood miles away. But if I
Mhm.
blindfolded you and I put a dirty diaper in your house, you could find that dirty diaper blindfolded easily. The only way
Mhm.
you could do that is because you can smell the bacteria through the air currents easily.
Mhm.
You could easily, it's getting stronger, little kid playing the warmer, colder game. You can do that very easily and find your way to the garbage or to the dirty diapers or whatever it may be. So ultimately, I like using these examples for people because once you have um, increased your air awareness, you will
Mhm.
become your own air quality detector. You will go into a restaurant. Like I'm sitting outside right now for anyone who's listening. It's 100 degrees outside right now.
Mhm.
I will take the 100 degrees. I'm in shade. I got a beautiful oak tree above me. and I got some water. I will take the outdoor air over indoor air when I can, anytime. So like, if the patio is cold, I'll wear a sweater. Um,
Mhm.
or maybe if it's too hot, but I'm really conscious of the indoor environments now. And I always tell people there's one downside to getting air filtration. If you put a Jasper in your bedroom and a few of them in your house, there's one significant downside. You will become an air snob.
Oh, totally. I completely agree with that because I'll go to friends' houses, families' houses, and I'm like, ooh, like right away. It's the same thing like with the water. Like I can smell the difference because all this stuff with my daughter, we have ridiculous setup here, like a
I
whole
bet.
home system that does a whole home air purifying that we spend way too much money on. And then we've had put air doctors all over. Now we've got the Jaspr downstairs and took the other air doctor to our rental. So like our house is insane with air purifying just because we've got, two kids. My son has struggled with some skin stuff. Now it's all cleared up, but I'm like, it's definitely related, my daughter
So let
too. Like,
let's say
go
you had
ahead.
a little bit of mold that you couldn't find, or
Mhm.
if most people, they don't have visible physical mold, they have airborne mold. So it's like,
Right.
if you test your water and it's high for chlorine or lime, like limestone or hard minerals, it's like, do you dig a new well or do you just get a water filter? So with a lot
Right.
of people with air, they're trying to play whack-a-mole with the
Hmm.
mold or with the allergens, but because of all the air filtration you have in your home, even if you had a little bit of mold here and there, it's not going
Right.
to be a problem because you're not
Right.
eating the mold, you're not drinking
Right.
the mold, you're not rubbing it into your skin, which is the four ways we put stuff in, unless there's a fifth way I'm missing, but it's we eat it, we drink it, we absorb it, and we breathe it. Um, so the only way we typically get impacted by mold is via air. Anybody
Hmm.
who's suffering from allergies, same thing. You're not eating the pollen, you're breathing it. So
Hmm.
because you filtered the air, you're dealing with the sources as much as you can in your home. You're probably using low tox cleaning products and all that.
Hmm.
So
Oh
you're
yeah.
you're doing you're doing
Detergents, all that.
the source thing as well. But because your house has really filtered air, even if there was this teeny tiny leak somewhere, that is never going to be a problem for you. Like I lived in a rental house in 2008 before we moved into our first house. I moved in and we rented the house sight unseen because we were traveling. This place was infested with mold.
Ugh.
And I mean like large patches of black mold on the windows, on the drywall. So I did a clean. I did a air test. The mold levels were off the charts. Not the good stuff. Not like outdoor,
Yeah.
like 400 times more than outside. Luckily, this is when I was inventing Jaspr. So I had 5 or 6 air purifiers running in my basement after a few weeks. And then I retested my house for mold, and we had no mold levels at all just by having
Wow.
the air purifiers in the basement because we filtered the mold. The mold. If you have chlorine coming in your tap, but then you filter that chlorine, you don't have chlorine anymore. And
Right.
the interesting thing is, it's actually about a few weeks that we didn't have the Jaspers and the other air filters running, so I got exercise induced asthma. So when I would
Ooh.
run on the treadmill, I would find myself on the ground wheezing, thinking I'm going to die. I
Ooh.
got red puffy eyes. I was sleeping 10 hours a night, waking up exhausted. My wife, fiance at the time, she was feeling super sick. Then we plugged in all the air purifiers. All of our symptoms went away. And then we're like, okay, we're only going to be here for a year. What we ended up leaving early, but one day we came home and we both, it smelled a little funny, but within an hour, both of us were inflamed and felt super sick
Ugh.
because the power went out the night before. So all the air
Ah.
purifiers were off. And then we went back downstairs, turned them all back on. And then within a few hours, our symptoms cleared back up. So it's like people could pay thousands of dollars testing for mold,
Mhm.
but like I wouldn't recommend that you test your nonstick pan for chemicals. Just get the cast iron or the stainless steel.
Jesus, right.
Sometimes just invest in the solution. So this is where I was frustrated because I was doing restoration. I was charging $1,000 to do extensive air quality consulting, and then they paid me
Mhm.
this money. And it's like, let's say your house is positive for mold. Well, the feedback is
And
going to be invest in air filtration. So I'm like, let me move to the side where I can sell people solutions and not,
mhm.
because if your house smells musty, you have a problem.
Yeah.
But everybody, no home has good air. I've never seen it
Right.
before. Whether it's the VOCs off gassing from your paint, your carpets, your cribs, your clothing, your drywall, your insulation, whether it's your neighbor's bounce sheets, or your neighbor across the street is renovating a bathroom and they're cutting 2x4s, or you're doing a barbecue. We live in a modern world, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm not willing to move to the Amazon rainforest just quite yet. I haven't got there yet. So, I mean, I'm a little bit removed from a city, and it's a blessing and a curse that we spend 95% of our time indoors. The curse is that's way too much time inside, guys. Get outside. The blessing is there's this one environment which is not that big where you can control your lighting, your water, your air, your food, your sleep sanctuary where you spend 1/3 of your life for not that much money. You can have your house dialed in, has a clean air, healthy haven. So it can go from your worst enemy and being a toxic cancer box to your greatest savior with under $10,000 and a little bit of awareness. You can turn your biggest weakness into your greatest strength. So I just like to kind of look at the blessing and the curse all at the same time.
Yeah, and just to like kind of ask you if this is what you really meant by that. If somebody's living in a house with mold, obviously, if they have a choice, you probably want to get out of that environment. But if they don't have the option to just pick up and move, putting in an air filtration system in the meantime could be helpful for that person, would you say?
So I would say yes, and the and would be I've seen people who were advised to move out of their house because of a
Yeah.
mold situation. So they
Yeah.
rent a new house. It's way moldier than the house
Mold.
that they moved out of.
I've seen that
It's
too. It's horrible.
so so like air purification is like if you have a leak in your home, the first thing you do is call a plumber, not the
Yeah.
contractor. You want to stop the
Right.
leak. So even if you have a little bit of mold, like I would not be that literally if you had a patch of black mold, a big one in your basement, but we test the air in your house, you may not find any mold because you're not breathing it in. So like step one, same thing when we were doing restoration, mold removal projects, 99% of the time the homeowner doesn't have to move out of the house. We contain
Yeah.
the mold by building, we use 6 millimeter poly, we close off the vents, and we seal that room, and we put large negative air scrubbing air filters in the house. So all of the air is filtered. It's like we don't do surgeries and operations outside, we do them indoors in little tight
Mhm.
rooms with extensive air filtration and ventilation. So even literally, if people have like tuberculosis and they're getting their bodies cut open, the doctor has like an N95 or something or a surgical mask. Um, it's not airtight, but we have our air quality preventative measures in place to deal with the situation. So yes, if you have a lot of mold in your house, the black stuff, you can see it. There's a time when you want to get that remediated, but
Mhm.
a lot of the times it's not that situation. And I just don't want. I feel like because I was on the other side, team alarmist before, where people were dropping 100 grand and mortgaging their house when that may
Mhm.
not have been necessary. Um, and it's also bonkers to me. People buy a home, you get like an $800 home inspection. By the
Yeah.
way, I'm a certified home inspector too. I did home inspecting just to get trained in what home inspectors are doing. We literally, if you look at the contract from your home inspector, it will say, first of all, we don't have to go on your roof and we don't look at anything environmental. So we are trained not to comment on mold or anything biologic or environmental due to
Really?
liability concerns. So you're paying $800. All we're looking for is like something that's going to put a hole in your pocket, like a cracked drywall, a foundation, an old roof, or like an old water heater, or like a light switch doesn't work. Instead of making sure this is actually a healthy home for you to move your family in. And I just found that
Mhm.
crazy that the home inspectors aren't even trained on environmental inspecting and testing.
Oh yeah. No, I think people just assume that they are and that if they get a home inspection, that that's going to be included, but it definitely is not checking off all the boxes. So,
I would love to give your audience some easy free wins that they could take today.
yeah.
Stuff that doesn't mean they have to buy a thing. Investing in stuff is great. And there's a great quote that's by Dr. Pomp, at least he's the first one I heard say it. It was, you can't detox your body if you don't detox your home. So you can do all
Mhm.
the the saunas, the steams, the red light therapies, the supplements. But if you're living in a toxic environment, it's just going in one side and out the other, and you're not actually getting ahead. So
Mhm.
so there's a lot of stuff though that people can do like immediately to have a huge difference. So one low-hanging fruit is don't wear your shoes indoors. 95% of shoes tested, they have fecal matter. But beyond that, you walk on the grass that has Roundup and glyphosate. You're walking
Right.
on the streets that have rubber from the tire. It's like the outdoor ground is not necessarily a super sanitary place. Also, like in Texas, I came from Canada where nobody wears their shoes indoors. In
Mhm.
Texas, people just walk right in your house with their shoes on. So my wife Rachel keeps having to make bigger and bigger and bigger signs that they're like, "Will take your shoes off, please?" And like even still, we have to tell people like it's not okay. Take your shoes off. So that's like a really easy win you can have. Number two,
Mhm.
if you have a pet, air filtration is mandatory, not optional,
Mhm.
because
Oh,
pets are
yeah.
great for companionship and all that, but they are horrible for air quality. Not just their dander, not just their saliva, but if you have a dog that's outside and then comes and sleeps in your bed, that is the
Oh
equivalent
my
of
gosh, yeah.
taking a blanket, going outside, rubbing it on that glyphosate yard, rubbing it on another dog's butt, rubbing it on a tree, and then shaking it out in your bed with all the pollen. You would never do that, but with your dog, because it comes in a cute furry package, so lovable, you forget about it. It's like when your kid's super sick or like comes home from daycare and like you kiss your kid anyway. I'm like, maybe do that with your kid, but like dogs, and also they create a lot of humidity, a lot of dander.
Mhm.
So brush your dog more than you think you should. Like invest in grooming, brush your dogs, wash their paws before they come back in from a walk. Take the 2 minutes to wipe their paws down, give them a brush. And if they're sleeping in your bedroom, air purification is a mandatory. And it'll be, if you track your sleep on an Aura or a Whoop or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, your sleep score will go through the roof by not breathing in your dog every night. Because every breath you take has a ton of insect parts, pets, mold, dust mites, allergens. So when you go from breathing that to not breathing it, it's a big deal.
Mm.
Your range hood. So cooking is the number one way that you pollute the air in your home by
Oh,
far,
yeah.
followed by cleaning products. But cooking indoors is horrible. So personally, this is not a super practical tip, but it's a tip that we do often. So we use a company called Jetboil, but you could literally get an outdoor camping stove for $30. So we cook outside all the time. We go to the
Mm.
lake park or the regular park. If we're like on the weekend, like some bacon and eggs at the park outside, it's amazing. And like
Mhm.
honestly, it feels like infectious. Like if you bring the smell of bacon to the park, you are everybody's best friend. And then we started to notice the more we cook outside, the more we're noticing other people are cooking outside. And like, you have kids, there's nothing more stressful. When you have a kid, 2 p.m. becomes 10 p.m. in 1 minute. It's like the hour before you pick up the kid, then you pick up the kid, then you're rushing home, prepare the dinner, beg them to eat, clean the dinner, and then all the plate, then you're like putting them to bed. Now it's like 8:30 and you're like frazzled. So if
Yep.
we just like barbecue or cook dinner outside, they're outside playing, kicking the ball, having a good time the whole time. There's no big cleanup. The cooking is fun. They like eat and graze throughout dinner, and we usually like get going on that at like 4 o'clock. It's like after dinner, after school, we just like eat and play outside, and it's kind of this single harmonious thing together. If you are gonna cook indoors, opening windows, assuming it's not a really polluted day or too hot, too cold, is a big win. Next thing
Mhm.
up is the range hood. I,
Oh, yeah, that's
from my
totally
personal
solid.
experience, 75%, I would say. And honestly, don't quote me on this. I'd probably say 50% and 90%, but it's a lot. Range hoods don't usually work. So
Mm.
if you take a tissue test, take a paper towel and put your range hood on fan speed 1, that thing should grab the paper towel.
Mm.
Often, your paper towel is going to not get grabbed at all. Sometimes it even blows it the other way. So make sure your range hood actually pulls. And then, where is your range hood venting? A lot of people's range hood vents into the cabinet above or into the drywall cavity or into the attic, which is better but not great. Your range hood has to vent outside. That's the point of
Mm.
ventilation. It's not to put it into the other room, it's to get it outside. So make sure your range hood is A, pulling, B, it vents outside, C, use it. Um,
Mhm.
when you're cooking, if you're boiling something or if it's a dish that when you can conveniently use the back burner, because range hoods pick up a lot more particulate from the back burner from the front burner because you're right under there. And the front burner, it's not super effective. Um,
Mm.
so that's the big one. Like, if we're cooking indoors, your whole house shouldn't smell like bacon in 2 seconds. And the reason it does, because air is just like water. What water is to fish, air is to people. Like, if you took a bathtub and you put 4 or 5 drops of red food coloring in it, the red food coloring doesn't swim around like a fish and stay in one area. Within a few seconds, it's equally distributed around the whole body of water. Same thing. That's why you can smell a fart or garbage or cooking in a whole room very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because much like water, that air doesn't stay contained. You smell the bacon throughout the whole house because it's become an airborne problem. So what happens is you need to vent that stuff outside, whether it's the door open, the windows open, or the range hood on. So cooking is a big one. Non-stick pans pollute much more than non-stick pans. And of course, now eating clean food is better, but even if you're using avocado oil or tallow in grass-fed, grass-finished steak, your air is still going to get very polluted
Oh
because
yeah.
it's not just the beef in the air. When you have high temperature and protein, you get PAH, which is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon. You get sulfur dioxide, you get NO2. So there's a lot of byproducts of high heat and proteins that contaminates your air. And if you're not filtering your air, that gets embedded into your carpets, furniture, clothing. It's everything that's porous absorbs that stuff, and then you're sleeping on it every night. So what you can do and why, and then you're like, wait, so not only does it have the byproducts, but like, why is it okay to eat but not breathe? Well, when you eat that food, it goes into your digestive system, which is perfectly designed to take the good nutrients and filter out the waste and integrate it into your body. But when you breathe it through air, it goes into your respiratory system, which is not designed that way. So that irritates your respiratory system, impacts allergies, asthma, air quality, sleep quality. So cooking is the big one. Cleaning products. I'm sure there's a lot of good brands out there, but I've seen a lot of people who use like Branch Basics and Primally Pure, and Branch Basics won't kick up your Jaspr. So Jaspr is not only does it clean your air amazingly, but when you have it on smart mode, it's an airborne toxin detector. It will tell you if your products are toxic or not within
Mm-hmm.
reason. It's not perfect, but it's very directionally useful. Um, so use good products. Don't spray sunscreen indoors. Ideally, don't spray hairspray. Don't use any aerosolized spray stuff
Mm-mm.
inside. Just go
Mm-mm.
outside for a sec. I mean, ideally, you're not even using aerosolized stuff, but if you are, definitely go outside. Um, we covered shoes, we covered the range hood, we covered kind of cleaning products, and the same thing that applies to your range hood. Check your bathroom fan with the tissue
Mm-hmm.
test. Make sure your bathroom
Ah.
fan is pulling, and also make sure it vents outside. I was telling you before the podcast, a lot of them vent into the attic, and that creates a lot of mold. Maybe that was on the podcast.
Mm.
I don't know, but make sure those fans that are your vents are designed to vent outside, so they need to be pulling and they need to go outside. And then a 2 hour there's two things. One's called a humidistat, which is a humidity detector in your bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, you can actually get like a timer for your bathroom fan. I have them in their 2 hours. So when I shower, I hit the 2 hour button because if you think about how much water your towel
Oh yeah.
absorbs, your despite conventional wisdom, bathroom fans are for humidity, not for poop smell. I mean, I guess they're kind of helpful for both. But if you shower, if there's liters or gallons of water on the towel on the floor, that humidity is just
Mm-hmm.
going into your house. So you want to be venting
Right.
that outside. Um, Dishwashers are another crazy one.
Oh yeah.
Dishwashers really pollute our air. Why do you smell soap when you're using a dishwasher? Your oven vents outside, your dryer vents outside, your dishwasher just blows right into your house. So like
Mm-hmm.
using low tox dish pods, having air filtration, opening your windows when you run the dishwasher. These are little things that people can do. So I'll stop there. That's a lot to unpack, but I just want to make sure that people know that there's a lot of like practical, easy wins and tips that people could get right away. And it's not just always buy, 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 buy.
I appreciate that. And I know that my community will as well, because yeah, there's a lot. I mean, you could really just spend money all day on things to improve your health. And, as I learned with the whole mold remediation thing in the house, it's like kind of a bottomless pit once you start. And so utilizing the free stuff, I think, is crucial. And yeah, what you said about the cooking, we have the Jaspr now that you guys sent us one where we love it. And we had before that, we put it over in another location, a 5500 air doctor. And whenever we would cook, that thing would just go crazy. And I'm like, oh, it doesn't like this food. It doesn't like that food. But it was just kind of doing its job. And the Jaspr does its same thing. And my sister was actually over the other day, and she was getting ready to go somewhere and getting ready in my bathroom. And she sprayed some hairspray and the Jaspr went completely wild. I was like, there's a reason why I don't use hairspray. Like it's
Yes.
not,
And,
yeah,
and even though
it
even
literally went
and
wild in the other room.
so let's say you spray the hairspray and then after an hour you don't smell it anymore. It's because it's in your surfaces now. It's not
Yep.
gone.
Right.
It didn't get evacuated from the building. So I'm curious. You've been using the Air Doctor and the Jasper.
Mhm.
I'm curious if you have any like feedback for us. Is there anything that you wish Jasper had or could do better that the Air Doctor does? Because I discovered Air Doctor about a year ago, and like
Mhm.
we're on our fifth version of the product. I am ruthlessly trying to improve the product. We don't make water filters. I don't make diffusers. We only do air. We stay in our lane. We want to be world class at one thing.
Mhm.
But Air Doctor's been at it for a really long time. So I'm curious from a consumer's perspective, how you've found Jasper versus the Air Doctors or any other air purifiers you've had in the past.
Well, Air Doctor definitely was way better than any other air purifier I ever got at like Home Depot or Lowe's. Like I was always on the hunt to get a good air purifier. Those have been awesome, but I will definitely say the Jasper, it does feel like it's a little bit more sensitive to cooking, hairspray, little things like that, that the Air Doctor wasn't necessarily grabbing. And just for people who are like minded in that way, that the Jasper is a lot more attractive than the Air Doctor, especially the because we had the big 5500 downstairs, which would grab so much stuff, but it was like really big and like super ugly. So definitely still think that's a fantastic product and
It
love
is.
that.
It
If
is.
yeah, and I think and the thing with the air doctors also is when we had the mold guy here, and he was testing the air, he found, of course, find a little bit of mold in the air. But as soon as we turn on the air doctors in the rooms, he's like, "Oh, it's perfect now. There's like no detectable issues at all since you have the air doctors on."
That's
So
great.
I know that they work really well. If anyone listening has one of those,
Has
but
one.
I think
Yeah, keep it. You can keep it.
yeah, keep it. I think it's fantastic. And I'm not getting rid of mine. But the Jasper's definitely like more attractive,
So
kind of
what
a
are
little bit more.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you
I was
finish.
gonna say it's a little more aesthetic than the air doctors.
So yeah, because my background was in wildfire and flood restoration, we learned that when we would leave these big industrial air scrubbers behind people's homes, they would turn them off
Mm.
sometimes. I'm like, why would you turn it off? Your air is horrible. They're like, I know, but it's so loud and it's so ugly. And
Yeah.
you could buy a kettle at Walmart for $19 and it's gonna heat
Mhm.
water. But some people prefer the $90 one or the $70 one or the $100 one because it's sitting on your countertop and you want it to look beautiful. And
Mhm.
also so our kind of vision was to like I also believe that with health and wellness, I'm a big less is more and I'm an addition by subtraction guy. So I think water is beautiful and perfect the way it's intended. And air is beautiful and perfect the way it's intended. It's perfect for us. Food, if we don't mess with it, it's perfect. Most things are perfect. We're born
Mhm.
quite perfect. Let's not mess with that. So
Mhm.
I find a lot of people when they go down this wellness journey, it's really overwhelming because they're
Mhm.
getting some wins. They see it's working, but it's like, I need to meditate 3 times a day. I need to journal. I need to do my 3 red light therapies, 2 saunas, 1 cold plunge. And then, like, I had my friend Wes, I actually nicknamed him Relax Hard because it's comical because, like, he was stressed. If he didn't do his 3 breath works a day, he was beating himself up for imperfection. And I believe all of these toxins is just all various forms of stress. And I think
Mhm.
stress will punish you no matter what kind it is. And
Mhm.
and so with from the reason we only make one Jasper is because first of all it has to be large. So with those air doctors, like you said, the 5500 is an excellent machine. The
Mhm.
smaller ones, I believe they're just a little too small to get the job done.
Mhm.
If you have one in like a closet or a tiny bedroom, you pretty much have to run it on full speed. If it's on
Oh yeah.
full speed, it will clean the air, but it's too
Yeah.
small to be effective on fan speed one. And I'm a bit of a entrepreneurial tree hugger. I love nature. I love trees. I love sustainability. So our mission was to create something that was made out of metal, not plastic. So a big deal is Jasper is made out of steel, and
Hmm.
Jasper's life expectancy is 30 years. That's why we have a
Wow.
lifetime warranty, which I'll explain a little bit more after. Hopefully, you never have to go through it, but if you do, you'll be impressed. So it had to be made out of steel. We wanted to be as simple as possible because home ownership and renting is very overwhelming. So like I
Mm-hmm.
bought the Air Doctor 5500 to test it, and when I read the instructions, it has 3 filters, and it says you have
Mm-hmm.
to vacuum the filter every single month. And
Mm-hmm.
vacuuming it every month, like, oh, I have
Pain in
enough
the
to do on
butt.
my to-do list. So, and remember when I wheeled it in our house, my wife's like, "Yo, when are you gonna get that air conditioner out of the house?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 that's the air purifier." She's
Mm-hmm.
like, "I know you're doing this for science and for business, but like that can't live in our living room." And because their instructions said it had to be at least a foot from each wall. So
Mm-hmm.
because the way it's designed, it only takes in the air from 2 sides. Jaspr takes in the air from 360 degrees. So you can put it in the corner, you can put it against the wall, you can put it wherever you want. It doesn't really matter. And the heavier particles are low, so it takes the toxins in and then it vents them up into the breathing zone. Also, so I said it's metal. So when you manufacture 1 ton of plastic, it puts 3 tons of carbon into the atmosphere. So if everybody in the world bought a plastic air purifier, we would be polluting the outdoor air at such an extreme level that we would then need more air doctors. And it's like a self-fulfilling demise. So I'm like, the best way to be sustainable is buy high quality. Like anybody out there who bought the Magic Bullet 7 times, and then they're like, I'm just buying the Vitamix. I want a really good blender that lasts 10 years.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's cheap to it's expensive to be cheap. And there's a
Penny
reason
wise,
why
pound
most
foolish is what I call it.
it's a wonderful saying, and it's tripping. What's the other one? Tripping over dollars, tripping over pennies, or like penny wise,
Yeah, I know
pound
what you're
foolish is actually perfect. And yeah, no need to reinvent the wheel there. And like I found that so the reason that we can do a lifetime warranty instead of a 1 year warranty is because we put our money where our mouth is.
Mm,
If your Jaspr breaks, here's how it works. We ship you a brand new Jaspr the next day. You take your new Jaspr out of the box, you put the old Jaspr in the box. So no, you don't have to save the receipt, you don't have to save the box. You take the new one out, you put the old one in. Then we actually give you a prepaid shipping label from UPS, and you pop it on, and we schedule UPS to pick it up at 9 a.m. the next day. You should not have to go to the post office and lug it around. If your Jaspr breaks, that's a Jaspr problem. That should hurt us. That should be an expensive mistake for us, unless your kid threw a pencil in there, and that's a different situation. But if the thing breaks, why is that like it's shocking to me. Like even furnaces and air conditioners, they have like a 1 year
hmm.
warranty, but they say it lasts 15 years. Shouldn't the
Right.
warranty match the life expectancy of the product? Otherwise, the company is not putting their money where their mouth is. So we went with metal. We went with super high quality commercial grade sensors. We made it 360 degrees, and we made one filter that you have to change twice a year. Carbon HEPA
Nice.
pre-filter all in one. So you don't have to vacuum it every month and change this one every 3 months and this one every 6 months. Like I created the Jaspr that I wanted my friends, my family, and myself to have. And I really wanted it for people who lived on the West Coast that were dealing with wildfire smoke. And then it
Yeah, that's
just so
huge right
happened,
now.
huge right now, huge. And because we invented it for wildfire smoke, we made it overkill for the regular
Mhm.
house. But it turns out overkill is just what we need for sleep and for general everyday life: pollen, allergies, mold, asthma. Like the air is getting worse, but our
Mm.
filtration wasn't getting better. So yeah, those were some of the ways that we've been approaching. And because we just have one product, it allows our support and our maintenance to be best in class. Because like once you have like 15 different SKUs, think about how stressful it is to train your team. Like
Yeah.
everything becomes, and how do you build your, if you're building just one thing, your manufacturing process can be beautiful, it can be dialed in, it can be so high quality. When the factory is making 7 different products, you
Right.
compromising on quality for a quantity of choices. So we just made one thing, and that was sort of our approach.
I really like the one filter because I mean that's why I quit using reverse osmosis and really even recommending people do RO systems because you're like constantly buying filters all the time. And then with the air purifiers, it's like 3 different filters. And did I get the right one? And then I've ordered the wrong one. And it's just like becomes this huge issue. So I like the one filter thing.
Did
Um,
you see our filter? How substantial it is?
yeah, it is. It's awesome.
So our filter weighs 4.5 pounds, and it's cylindrical. It's a cylinder because when you have a flat filter, a
Mm,
cylinder gives you the most surface area by far.
mhm.
Our filter weighs 4.5 pounds. Most filters
Wow.
weigh under a pound or half a pound. And really, when you're buying an air purifier, you're buying the filter, and then it's just a
Mm,
beautiful machine with a good fan to house
right.
that filter. So I'm about 180 pounds. I can stand on our filter. My
Oh, nice.
4-year-old daughter can't stand on most filters, or she'll break them. So
Yeah.
and it has the metal cage too. And it's like, who cares that you can stand on your filter? Like, who stands on their filter? It matters a lot, actually, because when we were doing our lab testing, 30% of the time our filters were failing lab testing. They weren't achieving HEPA standard. I'm like, what's going on? Well, what happens is in shipping and handling, or when you unbox it, just when touching the filter, you damage it. It gets
Ah,
disturbed. And if you think about a filter, it's these super tight pleats that are keeping out microscopic particles. So these little tiny particles get through. So if you just flick a filter or drop it, there's now a weak link in the armor, and a filter is only as strong as its weakest link. So
mm,
what happens is, even though it's HEPA, they don't test every single one coming off you get one lab
yeah.
tested. And we're like, wait, why are 30% failing? And it was the
Mm,
structural integrity. That's why we really overinvested and we made our filter like a tank. So now 100% or 99% of our filters are an amazing, they're structurally rigid. So that way, when they get shipped and handled and unboxed and popped in the unit and stuff like that, they stay structurally sound. And that's really important. And like, the way I think about it is, back in the day, if you wanted like a speaker system, like Sonos, despite the Wi-Fi and also we have no Wi-Fi and no Bluetooth. We have no
oh
app.
yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, please don't turn your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on those devices. Like we do
We don't
not
have
need
one.
any more. No, I know
We
on the air doctors, I'll tell people, I'm
Well,
like,
even
don't,
even if you turn it off, if you do an
it's
EMF
still,
test, it's often
yeah,
still running in the background. They don't have airplane
yeah,
mode on them, which they should.
right.
Um, so I don't like EMF. I don't like Wi-Fi. I don't like Bluetooth. And like, last thing I need is an app for my air purifier. So we just eliminated all of that stuff and we just stuck to the
Nice.
fundamentals. So like when Sonos came out, though, it was pretty beautiful, because back you used to need one giant loud speaker, and
Hmm.
it would be like way too loud in that room, or you'd go in the other room and you couldn't hear it, and you'd feel the bass. And then along came, like, either a whole home sound system or a Sonos or whatever. There's hardwired ones too, of course, but it was awesome because you could have reasonable volume in every room. So
Hmm.
with our approach with Jaspr is, I spent 4 years working on a whole home air filtration system, and it wasn't that effective. It was okay. The problem is it chokes out the airflow in your HVAC system. It decreases your airflow. Some of them are a bypass, and they're not that bad, but you ideally want your furnace fan only running when it needs to run, when it's heating and when it's cooling. So when the
Hmm.
furnace fan is not running, the uh, filter is not working. So we really wanted it to just be a silver bullet. You pop it in your HVAC system, you're done. But when we tested it, a decentralized system was way more effective. And people spend seven, eight, nine, $10,000 or more on their whole home water filtration systems, and they
Hmm.
spend thousands of dollars on a furnace style HVAC unit. With our
Hmm.
bundled codes and stuff, a whole home Jasper system, like 4 Jaspers, it's like under $3,000. And now you have
Hmm.
a decentralized air filtration system right in your bedroom, right in your baby's bedroom, in the nursery, in the cooking. You want to deal with the air quality in the specific room before it spreads throughout the whole house.
Right.
So that was really important. There's actually so that's how we kind of think about it, because water is easy. You could just filter it right at the pipe,
Mhm.
and it will filter all the water that goes through that pipe. Air is sneaky, comes in through your doors, your windows, your vents, your cracks, your attic.
Mhm.
That's why you kind of need like a decentralized whole home air filtration system, and that's why we
Mhm.
bundle it. But one other thing, I'm sure there's a lot of parents or maybe grandparents listening here, and I'm a dad of a 2 and a 4-year-old girl, and there'll be another one. So I remember a fun story when my wife Rachel, who's a labor and delivery nurse, when Aria,
Oh,
our older daughter, when she was a baby, we had one of those diaper pails in the nursery, and I would go in there. I'm like,
oh.
Rach, it smells like poop in here. It smells like poop. So if you test the bacteria, it's off the charts. If it's just, but let's go back to basics. Trust your senses. If it smells like poop, it's because it is poop. And if it is poop, it's a lot of bacteria and Enterobacter and E. coli. You don't want that stuff. So I'm like, Rach,
Mhm.
can we maybe just put the diapers right outside?
That's what we
And
do. Outside
and
trash.
Rach was like, yo, dude, it's easy for you to say, she's a new mom. There's a million things. She's like easy for you to say. So I'm like, cool. Has a rite of passage for tonight. Let's put the diaper pail in our bedroom to see what it feels like to sleep in a poopy diaper room.
Oh,
She's like, And I said, by the way, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. And Rachel was like, ew, no, I'm not sleeping with the diaper pail in our room. Like, well, Aria is every night. Fun fact, adults breathe about between 10 and 20,000 times a day. Babies breathe 60,000 times a day. 60,000 times, and their little filtration systems aren't developed yet, and they can't
Right.
advocate for themselves. So this is why we're here. So that those diapers got to go outside. And
Yeah.
Jaspr helps, but it's not the solution. This is a time where the source is the solution. And so many people spend so much time and money baby proofing, all these things. But like your baby's nursery, the crib is
Hmm.
off gassing, the toys are off gassing, the paint is off gassing, the new rug is off gassing, their new onesies are off gassing. So like giving your baby a clean air sleep sanctuary to me is just the ultimate table stakes. If you have a baby, that's table stakes. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's just something important I did not want to forget because that's a big deal.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, we've got air purifiers in bedrooms, like expensive ones, because even though we've got the whole home system, I'm still wanting everyone to have a good sleep area. It's I think that's crucial to get as much EMF because and here's the other thing about EMF and air purifiers everyone freaks out about. Distance is your friend. Don't get the ones that have the
Eight
Wi-Fi and
feet.
the Bluetooth, but at least yeah, keep them away from your bed as far away as you can and get a good one so it's still cleaning the air, but yeah, your sleep space, you want to keep it as pristine, dark and clean as you possibly can if you want to really optimize your health. I think it's the ultimate health hack, honestly.
What me too. Like everybody's like, everybody knows get a comfortable bed, get a good sheet,
Hmm.
blanket, and a pillow. And then, table stakes is everybody likes it to be a comfortable, cool temperature. And then a lot of
Hmm.
people like it to be what do you call it on top of that? Like quiet. If you live above a bar and there's a base, your sleep is only as
Oh,
good
it
as the
moves.
weakest link. So even if you
Right.
have the most comfortable bed ever, if you're dying of heat, you're not gonna have a good night's sleep. And
Mm-mm.
so like I said, when you have clean air, it makes you an air snob. So when people who you're at, like if we test the particles in your house between zero point 0.3 and 10 microns in size, the average house with unfiltered air will have about 800,000 particles in it. That's the
Hmm.
insect parts, the dust, pollen, the mold, the allergens, all the stuff. Now, when you put a Jaspr in your bedroom within half an hour, that's typically reduced by 90 to 95%. So I
Hmm.
call air sleep fuel and I call it thinking fuel during the day. When you are, breathing is the only thing you do from the moment you're born till the day you die. You can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, but only 3 minutes without air. And if you think about this, so you're sleeping every single night, let's just say 8 hours. So you're breathing like the most miraculous discovery I've had with Jaspr is people who have horrible seasonal allergies and
Oh
they're
yeah.
struggling. And then they put the Jaspr in their bedroom and maybe another one in their kitchen and living room, but even just one helps a lot. And then their seasonal allergies go away almost entirely. Because if you think
Hmm.
about it, human body, amazing. But if it's being exposed to allergens 24 hours a day, it beats you down. So even when
Yeah.
you're resting and you're recovering, you're consolidating your memories, you're trying to repair your muscles and your fibers and your tissues and recover, but you're doing it in a toxic state. Your body's in fight or flight. It's fighting. It can't fight. You're sleeping. It's playing defense all night long. Your stress bucket is full. So when you create that sleep sanctuary or you turn your home into a clean air sanctuary, all of a sudden it's not a what kills you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger situation. Allergens beat you down. Mold beats you down. So when your home and your bedroom is a clean air sanctuary, I've seen people get a new lease on life. They go outside, they're like,
Yeah.
the allergens for a couple hours on a walk or getting into their car, they're unfazed. They get home, they're breathing clean air, they detox it, but out and about, they're in rough spot. So anyway, those are some of the
Yeah.
important things I want to make sure we cover. Any other
Yeah. I
questions?
I mean, I feel like we've given a good I love all the free stuff that are practical things people can start doing today after they listen to this. And then if people are interested in looking at the Jasper system, you do have a special deal.
Also, if you ever want, like if you get feedback and people have a bunch of questions, it would be my pleasure
Mhm.
to do an Instagram live or an AMA with you where people can ask
Sure.
very specific questions about their house, about their mold, about whatever. Also, if they send us a voice note or they reach us, I mean, if they send us questions, we'll reply usually with a voice note or with a little video. But I'd be
Nice.
happy to go deeper. We are education first by far. To The best thing you can do is do those free things. Uh,
Hmm.
for everybody else who wants to, so basically what we want to do today is, we don't do Google ads. We don't really do much like a Facebook marketing. We're not in Best Buy or Amazon or Walmart where all of the money would go to them. So what
Right.
we love to do is come on places like this, have really educational conversations with a health aware, health conscious audience. So Jaspr, fun fact, Jaspr used to be 1975. They were $2,000 when we launched and we sold to doctors and dentists. Last year we got the price down to $13.99, and this year we got the price down to $9.99. We've been getting more efficient, and COVID shipping rates have come down. We've got our costs down and we've got more efficient. So we're always passing the savings on to the customer. We want to make clean air as affordable as possible, not as unaccessible as possible. So
Right.
it's $9.99 now. But what we're going to do, so for your most loyal listeners, we're going to do a 20% discount code, and it stacks with our offer as well. So if you go to Jaspr's website, if you buy 2, 3, or 4, the more you buy, the cheaper they get. So our discounts will combine. So let's say somebody bought 4, the Jaspers would literally be $5.99 each. They would get both of our 20% together, which would be like 40% off. So for the first week, it'll be 20% off, which is at least $200 even on one, and that gets bigger and bigger the more you get. And then to anyone who is just not the right week for you, after this week, it's going to be 10% off, and we'll leave that code up forever. So the code is going to be Sarah K, SARAHK, and that'll be 20% off this week, and then it'll be 10% forever after that. And like, no pressure here. I'm sure we'll do lots more stuff in the future again, but I just wanted to say, extend the best offer for people who have been wondering about if dialing in their clean air and finally taking the plunge and investing in themselves. And our commitment to you is for a little bit over $1 a day. The filters are $199 twice a year, but we bundle the filters with the lifetime warranty. So our commitment to someone is you buy the Jaspr once, and then for a little over $1 a day, you get clean air for life. If it breaks, we cover the shipping both ways. We send you the brand new unit. You will never have a hidden cost or an unexpected expense. For a little over $1 a day, clean air for life. So hopefully that will help some of you guys out there.
Nice. Well, I love this. And I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this conversation and definitely check out the discount code Sarah K if you are interested in checking out one of these machines. I think it is a worthy investment if you're looking to upgrade your health. And thank you, Mike, so much for being here today and chatting with me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. Just a quick little reminder, this is not medical advice nor meant to be taken as a substitute for working one-on-one with a healthcare practitioner. And if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple or Spotify to leave the show up to a 5-star review. If you're over on YouTube, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. I really appreciate you for being here, for listening to the show, and your support means the world to me as I continue to try to pull guests from around the world to bring you informative content to empower you to make decisions about your own health. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.